Well, good evening, folks. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Jamaica Mix. And of course, I'm yours truly, Mr. B. And today, some issues that I've been following, and I want to take some time out to address them this evening. The first of which is this whole business of crime and punishment in Jamaica, and specifically the whole business of Jamaica returning to capital punishment in an effort to, how should I put it, to provide a deterrent for murderers in Jamaica. And this is a sore topic for a lot of people. In fact, I was drawn to this conversation, or to have this conversation this evening, after following this story of the young woman who has been subsequently charged with the she pled guilty to the murder of an 8-year-old girl that was basically abducted from the Brayton Primary School in Portmore, St. Catherine, on June 8th of last year. Of course, a very, very traumatic set of events. And, just following because she pled guilty, so what the court was now doing was having hearings to address the whole decision as to sentencing, right? And I saw where one known Jamaican, a legislator at that, in Jamaica, who in an interview I think it would have been a CVM interview, and also the publication of her views in the Observer, clamoring for a return to the death penalty, and specifically the returning the death penalty for child murderers. Some strong arguments. And again, when you listen to the victim assessment statements, if you will, that were presented in the court, it is moving, very, very moving. Because here's a little younger, and let me lay the situation out there, because in Jamaica, it is my view that crime is a problem general. It's a problem everywhere, but we're dealing with Jamaica. And Jamaica have a particularly troubling issue in respect of crime and violence. Give the government, the current administration, its due. Whatever it is that they have been doing, certainly over the past year, has certainly resulted in a trending down of murders in Jamaica. I think the murder rate has dropped some 18 to 20% year to date, year on year compared with the last year, the 2023. And, that is essentially a step in the right direction, but it doesn't change the fact that 18% of a murder rate of, on an average 1,250, 1,300 Jamaicans being murdered every year, and an 18% reduction, while it is admirable, and we will say yes, it's a step in the right direction. The issue of Jamaicans murdering each other at such a phenomenal rate. I mean, we're tracking the murder rate in Jamaica over the last, 10 years, and the last 30 years. And we are killing on an average about 50 Jamaicans per every 100,000 of population. And so prolific has been the efforts of destroying other Jamaicans' lives by other Jamaicans, that I'm convinced that we're at the point now where people have basically learned to live with this murder scourge. I think people, you almost take it for granted. You read about a murder, a shooting, a chopping up, or a whatever, the destruction of another Jamaican life by Jamaica. And, it's almost as if Carol licked down a dog out the street, and it's just, I just an next man dead. And so only when the death comes close to home, when it's a family member or a close friend or something like that, that at some point, some Jamaicans are prepared to take the matter seriously. And so, what we then have are knee-jerk reactions. We have, especially if somebody uptown, big name, get killed or them picnic, you hear we form a new police squad, and we're going to go and we're gonna wreak havoc amongst the target group that we figure would have committed these murders. And so what we have is these hard policing that doesn't necessarily address the problem, right? And so people are clamoring for a return to the death penalty. And so I want us to open up this whole issue of returning to the death penalty. In fact, why are we at a point where the death penalty was removed as a punishment option for Jamaica? And where do we go from here? Do we see that if we can go back to establishing the gallows and put staffing it with a hangman, will that change our penchant for murdering each other? Now, let's be real. When we look at this whole business of the death penalty in Jamaica, the death penalty was basically removed from the law officers in terms of how they would have approached the crime and punishment, and this was removed in 1993. Well, granted, even before that, the death penalty had basically been put on hold, and a lot of that had its genesis in the essential failure of the system to deal with the having speedy trials. And this stemmed around the now world famous Pratt and Morgan versus the Attorney General case. And here we show with a picture of Earl Pratt on the left of your screen, and Morgan on the right. Both of these men were fingered and arrested and charged for a murder that took place in Jamaica in 1977, right? And they at the trial of the two, right? In fact, there were three people who were involved in the murder. I think one was killed, and so the police held on to these two, and they were they were arrested, charged, and tried. The prosecution, I'm told, relied on the eyewitness testimony, single eyewitness, right? And the jury, we are told, took less than 5 minutes in their deliberations to convict the two men. This is 1977. Now, both men were then incarcerated for another, well, right up until 1993, when the Privy Council, because the matter, they appealed, the whole trial was torn apart, and they continued appeal all the way to the United Kingdom Privy Council. Now, from my information, and I was a big enough man at the time following this case, because it became a landmark case. It was during the period of growing political unrest in Jamaica, and there are all sorts of issues that related to it. But the long story short is that both men, having been found guilty, spent an inordinate almost 14 years they spent on death row, right? Waiting to face the gallows. And on multiple occasions, they were removed from the general prison population, placed in the death row area, where they were now waiting on the hangman to turn up and march them after the gallows. And so they because this had happened multiple times, part of the appeal process called out what they call cruel and inhumane punishment. Now, one of the elements of our jury trial system, or the Jamaican justice system, based on what the British left us, is people's right to a speedy trial. And you have people on death row for 14 years. Well, first of all, they were incarcerated for years before the matter finally went to trial, which again deprived them of them right to a speedy trial. The whole question of the appeal, the reliance on the witness, the speed with which the jury deliberated, raised a lot of questions. And so when the matter went to the Privy Council in England, it was carried there under the aegis of the Pratt and Morgan versus the Attorney General of Jamaica. And of course, the Privy Council in England ruled in favor of the men, that they were and basically challenged the whole judicial process in Jamaica, that the system took too long to disburse with cases, and it questioned the legitimacy of the state when you start to have people languishing for such a long time before you carry out the wishes of the court. Now, a lot of other gray areas came into play, where lawyers sort of game the system, drag the cases out, and that became a feature of the justice system in Jamaica since then. And so, against that background too, the human rights group now started to gain traction in Jamaica, and they took on cases like this one in particular, because if I remember correctly, it was the Jamaica Human Rights Council who took the matter to the Privy Council on behalf of Pratt and Morgan. Long story short, when it went to the Privy Council, and the Privy Council said, no way. The Jamaica was now coming under pressure from elsewhere, where the whole international human rights bodies were now literally taking positions that saying capital punishment is redundant. It is not a deterrent to crime and violence, right? And there's this vast presentations of documentation to support that kind of theory. Now, what is even worse is that there are among Jamaicans a number of international agencies who are signatories to the international human rights organizations, and countries with which Jamaica have all kind of relationships, borrowing relationships, people where we depend on for financial and economic support to Jamaica's development activities, who are also signatories to these treaties. And so Jamaica signed off on this whole business of abolishing capital punishment in the latter years. And on the basis, on the back of the Pratt and Morgan case, where the country basically demonstrated its inability to dispose of cases in a timely manner. It opened up the weaknesses of our policing and justice system in the way how cases are administered in Jamaica. And so, with that in mind, and the fact that, Jamaica borrow money from everybody. So if the people who you borrow money from, I tell you, say you can't broke nobody neck with Mr. the hangman again, or you can't apply that kind of or capital punishment, Jamaica don't have no room to go. And so I am watching this lawmaker who keep her name out of the conversation but she did throw some heavy arguments. But I want to say that this whole business of capital punishment in being returned is a pipe dream. I don't believe that anybody who is in them 40s and 50s will live long enough to see another person in Jamaica executed by the state. Right? It's never going to happen. And I do not believe either that by killing somebody because they killed somebody else, that provides a solution to your problems, right? I think what we need to do is to look at serious reforms to our justice system, where we have speedy trials, where the deterrent to crime and violence comes from the certainty that if you commit a crime, you're going to be caught, right? It also extends to having been caught, that you're going to be prosecuted and you're going to be found guilty, right? If you actually did the crime. And having been found guilty, we are going to send you away for a very long time. The problem with Jamaica and its murder issue, in my opinion, is that of the 1,300 murders or thereabouts that are committed in Jamaica on an annual basis, only about 10% of those murders are actually solved to the point where the murderer, and I'm being generous because the numbers are less than 10%, right? What we have learned is that on an average, only about 55% of those murders usually gets reported to the point where the police will conduct an investigation and actually arrest and charge somebody for that crime. Now, that means that almost 50% of the murderers are the persons who are committing murders in Jamaica never face the justice system, right? Now, of the remaining 50 or so percent that is usually arrested, only 30% of that number, 30% of the 50%, right, actually result in a case being built and it is taken in front of the courts to be argued, right? And of that number, only about 10% of those cases result in a conviction. And invariably, those cases takes years to traverse the court system. That is the problem in Jamaica with respect to crime and violence generally and murder specifically, because people recognize that I can kill somebody and I have a good 90% chance that I will get away with it scot-free. Think about it, right? If all you are convicting is 10% of the murderers, 90% of the murderers in a Jamaica, right? 90% of these murderers are out there walking up and down and killing again, right? I'd say somebody make the point. Judicial system in Jamaica is a sham and will continue to be so as long as the PNP and JLP are selected and elected by the people to form the government. A strong argument. Can't say that I am in disagreement with that. The reality is that we get the kind of government that we essentially vote for, right? And so let me keep the viewers point up there. And this is somebody on YouTube. It's Agro Valley Farm. Great point, excellent point. And so my thing is, we have a problem. We have a two-party political system. You are absolutely correct, Mr. Agro Valley Farm. We have a two-party system that, regardless of how you square it, it don't work. It has not worked for the people of Jamaica. And the best test case of a political or a government working for its people is in these areas where governance meets the people. The judiciary is the whole judicial system is the best test case of all of that. Because if people have no faith in our justice system, it's difficult to have faith in anything else within the country. And so our justice system is not a JLP problem, It's not a PNP problem, right? In other words, we're not going to say one versus the other, because the two of them guilty. What we have is a ramshackle courthouse system. We don't have enough cases in a court system. Starts with the investigation. So where the rubber meets the road in terms of crime and violence is the responsiveness of your police force to the challenges that face the system or the people within the system. So if people are not comfortable, when a man wrongs somebody and you report it to the police, the speed with which the police address the issue, run a proper investigation, build a case, and build a properly investigated case to the degree that when it is presented to the Director of Public Prosecutions, that case is winnable in a court of law. And it can't take 10 years. Ninja Man get arrested, get charged for murder, and it took 10 years before he was brought before the courts. 10 years. And there are myriads of other instances when other persons are charged with crimes, right? Given bail, and them come back out on the street, kill the wickedness, right? Thwart the whole process of the justice system. And then it take 10, 12 years before the case now try. There's no witness. The case files disappear and so on because the first line of defense is the police who investigate the crime. The second line of defense is the prosecutors who are going to plead that case in front of the judge. The third line of defense now is the judge, the justices who are going to sit down over this case. We looked at what happened with the Vibes Cartel case, right? The cartel is back on the street, not because he was found not guilty, but because of all of the flaws that happened with the particular case. And so at the end of the day, the case went to the Privy Council. The Privy Council basically said the case are rubbish and sent it back to the Jamaican courts, who now have no other option but to dash the case out and leg of the man. And so these are some of the issues that we have. And so when we talk about capital punishment, we need to bring the hangman back, right? The Justice Sykes late last year in a presentation at a function in Montego Bay spoke about that, and he said that jury and bench trials, when you look at it's more than 70% of cases that are presented to the courts have to be thrown out. 70%, because we are convicting on an average less than 30%. Now remember, 30% conviction is not 30% of all of the people who are being murdered. It's 30% of the presented cases. And invariably, it's less than 50% of the instances where a murder occurs that somebody gets charged. And of those charges, only about 30% of those charged actually has a case that comes before the court. And of those cases that come before the court, according to Justice Sykes, only 30%. So do the math, and then you realize that the chance of committing murder, right? The chance of committing murder and getting away with it in Jamaica is absolutely real. And so how do we stem this thing? In an exchange with my legislator friend and with our post, where she make this emphatic plea to return to capital punishment, apart from the fact that it is hypocritical because you're a lawmaker, and so I know that you know that we ain't go hang nobody in Jamaica anytime soon. I know, as certain as today is Thursday, that I will not live long enough, and most of it, to see capital punishment reinstated in Jamaica. Because A, we are signatories to the International Charter of Human Rights, which has literally abolished hanging or capital punishment within their jurisdictions. And Jamaica, being a signatory to those arrangements, can't hang nobody, because if you do that, nobody ain't gonna lend you a 5 cent when you go with your heart in the hand to borrow money or to get aid from these donor countries, right? Because their aid is tied to the umbilical cord that binds you with those who have agreed to abolish capital punishment. So that's out of the question. So the question is, how do we fix the problem of murders? Well, we talk about, the first one is get the police proper training, right? Build a proper core of investigators who can track and investigate and present a case to the prosecution, the director of public prosecution, that is able to be won in court. No criminal, I don't care who them is, want to be taken off the streets. Well, let's go back to Vibes Cartel. Him there on the street now, and he spared nothing to ensure that his issue was heard and get himself back on the street, because nobody no want their prison. So no matter how a man bad, if him know say there is a chance, the chance of him committing this crime, and them going to put him up for 20 and 30 years, he ain't going to do that. You are going to think, because nobody wants to lose their freedom. That is a fact, right? So you don't have to hang nobody. The other thing we need to look at doing is educating Jamaicans. One of our problems in Jamaica is that we have invested heavily in diseducating our Jamaican population, right? The average Jamaican don't have the mens rea, the mindset to process their thoughts before them act. In fact, let me go beyond that. The late Professor Freddie Hickling had done a survey a couple of years before he passed away that showed that a significant percentage of Jamaicans are walking around who are suffering from mental illness, right? And so when you have a lady, like the lady who killed that little young girl, abducted her from school, the thing broke my heart. You'd have never believe it. You imagine you have a little 8-year-old child and you send her to school, young Daniel Rowe, right? The parents send her to school and she don't come back home, right? And so this was the case that I've been following when this whole scenario, just raised its head again. And so I hear the argument about capital punishment, and it's unfortunate. The family is almost completely devastated because a beautiful little child, and somebody who, because them figure that the child father and them did have a thing, and the relationship now go on so well. So she go to the school, take away the man picnic and cut the picnic throat, right? That is an indication of that person have a mental problem. That's a person who is mad, right? When you can take a defenseless picnic, because this is in your mind, you dopey them in your head and tell you, this is the way to punish the father, because I'm not give you no more of the Reno, and the Ray stop and Ray, and him have picnic and family elsewhere, and so you give him little no, and him not turn up anymore because I might have find something else, somebody else somewhere. And this is a mad person thinking that. That's not a sane person. Look at the boy who go in the people in house, who put him up and him kill the mother of five people in one murder. A mad smarty that. And so Professor Hickling right. A whole heap of Jamaicans out a road, a walk up and down, mad as ratted, right? But because we attach this stigma on the madness thing, nobody no want to call a spade, right? Because if you identify a man and say, boy, and according to Fred, is not the factor of 46% of his sample testing positive in the direction of madness. Is one thing. It said of the sample size that he took, and it was about 2,000 and odd people in the sample size, right? He went further on to say that of the 46%, right, of the people who were positive in terms of mental strength, degrees of mental incapacitation, him says only about 15% of them is on any kind of medication to deal with their mental illness, right? So the majority of people in Jamaica, there's a sizable proportion of our population that are mentally challenged, right? And unless we again address the education component, right, we're always going to have this specter of murder. Because remember now, we have become so accustomed to the murdering that when I hear say, man, boy, 5 man get shot last night, and the man say, what, 5 man get shot? And then you hear a hue and cry. Imagine somebody play football on a Sunday in a public football field, and some man can feed them have up somebody else in the crowd, and them just ride in at the football match and bust up some shot, and half dozen people lie down there. Mad people that, right? And they do that. That is a combination of some mental health issues and the fact that they know that the rate at which we arrest and convict people for those types of actions is slim to none, and slim just gone through the door. So we have a problem. We have a problem. And as my virgin just said earlier, the problem is because our legislators, the government, the political parties who form the government, they are the ones who are responsible for setting the playing field in terms of how we address this thing. And so, how do we deal with this thing? My view is that we have to, because we ain't gonna hang nobody again. So let's leave that out of it, because that is never gonna happen. As Bada Cat would say, that will never happen. Eh? So how do we think? We have to now go back into the school. We have to take some more medium to long-term approaches to fix this problem. We need to change the mindset of people, the Jamaican people. We need to set the playing field in a way that people can now believe in the justice system and its ability to do what is best for the country, right? And so while we are setting that up, on the other side of the ledger, what we need to be doing is to address the policing, investigative mechanism. We need to build a crack squad, right, of 1,000 investigators, right? Give them the training, the everything to do the job, forensics, everything, right? So that the minute you have a crime thing, bam, we need to see, gun crime is a big problem. We need to do what we call set up in Jamaica, what we call shot spotters. So the minute a gun explode, gunshot explode, the spotter pick up where the explosion will come from, and it train police in the direction. We have to send a different kind of message to the people of Jamaica in terms of how we deal with crime and violence, right? We have to, at the same time, look at how we are going to think, right? We have to address this thing in a holistic way, and education is a major part of how we address that. We have to go back into the school system where we teach people about the value systems, right? Proper value system where we value people's lives, right? Because it is only when we recognize the value of life, right? The sanctity of life, that we are going to do everything to protect that life. And so you have to re-educate Jamaicans into an understanding that there's a better way, right? Nearly 30% of all murders in Jamaica are domestic murders. 70% are criminal thing, but 30% domestic murder. Two people have a disagreement. Mother come from foreign, our grandmother, our relative come from foreign, and a stay a yard. You beg the thing, beg you like a $20 US now, and the visitor, why things tight and whatever. And instead of you work with that, you arrange with somebody to kill the people them and take with them foreign things where them bring up. Domestic murder. Man and him woman in a war because either the woman feels them and give her the ray out the street, or vice versa. And instead of go seek counseling and we sit down and work it out, we decide to, boy, we're gonna just brush away, right? And then because of this decadent kind of development in Jamaica over the years, what we have is a growing murder for hire situation. People out of Jamaica, a man tell me they're at the gas station and the little virgin ride up beside him on the bike and I said, why boss, beg you a little thing now? And the man said, why thing whatever, I'm looking, I'm fine, I like a $500 and him give man. So boy, I that him fine. So now spin on and try to get nothing small. And the man before him ride off, him said, then big boss, tell me something. You know, in a body where you want to brush it. You know, you have in the body where you owe your money and them now pay you or what kind of, I mean, know your business, you know. And so if you want a man to brush you, I just like a 5 piece, you know, $5,000, and we brush him in. That is the kind of thing, because guess what? We have made this business of murdering so pervasive in Jamaica, and people get away with it so much. That man have murder for hire thing in Jamaica. That a go on, right? So until we address the issues to the extent that I'm proposing, right, that we have a situation where police guarantee that when a man commit a murder, right, we're going to put him away. Whether you're a criminal, whatever it is, we're going to put you away. And we're going to send you away for a long, long time, right? And at the same time, we are educating the youth them to come up in the school system in terms of the value, the sanctity of life. You have to go back down there saying, Bridget, because if we're not doing that, we're not doing justice to ourselves and our country. We have a problem in Jamaica, a serious, serious problem with this murdering thing. And it don't make no sense we are talking about, well, bring back the hangman. Because in the first instance, the hangman is useless if you're not convict anybody. Think about that. We're talking about, oh, we need to bring back capital punishment. We are convicting less than 10% of the people who commit crime in Jamaica. So what the purpose we are about, we are going to build gallows and we're going to hang people, right? Where is that going to come from? As long as we don't fix the issues. This argument about bring back the death penalty is meaningless because we ain't convicting anybody anyway. And the Chief Justice himself made that argument, right? He said jury trials are returning on an average of about a 29% conviction rate, right? Bench trial, I think him say, I give a little bit more, about nearly 30%. So, but overall, of the cases that come before the court, right, only 30% of them are resulting in a conviction. So talking about increasing punishment, talking about death penalty is a meaningless argument. It's an argument in futility, right? Because you can't convict or you can't hang people who you know convict, right? Separate and apart from the fact that you can't hang nobody in Jamaica anymore because it's never gonna happen. So what we need to do is to look at a long-term fix, and that's what is our challenge, right? The challenge is to look at the problem in a holistic way. We can prevent crime if there is a certainty that when people commit a crime, a murder, whatever the crime is, that they are going to be caught and arrested, right? And not only are they going to be arrested for the crime that they commit, they are going to be convicted because we have quality investigators, right? And not only are they going to be convicted, they're going to be put away for a very, very long time. That is what deterrent is all about. Because nobody, people are worried about the hangman. because them know so that no exists, right? What people will worry about is that, right, you know, if me brush with them and they won't catch me and me gone, and all the way me have out a road, mash up, me a little speak over nice, gone, mash up, right? So that is where we need to focus our attention. Build an investigative mechanism, a strong police mechanism that guarantees that when a crime is committed, bam, we're going to catch you, right? We appoint more judges, right? Provide greater levels of training for the people within the courthouse system so that we can have and upgrade the courthouses so that the facilities are there to to execute the justice the justice system in a speedy manner. You're not supposed to have a man wait 5-10 years before him case come to trial. We need to do better than that. So those are some of the deterrents. And at the same time, while that is going on, we are recalibrating the thought process of our youngsters because we now have an education system that focuses on developing our human capital, critical thinking skills, processing skills. And then we need to have the support mechanisms around that. So counsel, build that into the school system. So two picnic in a school have a disagreement, them go and sit down in front of a panel of their peers and teachers who can help them work out the problem. Because what you are doing is teaching these kids that there is another way, right? There's another way. Teach them the value of being here as a human being. And if you teach them that in the school system over time, it permeates as they go into adulthood. So they now recognize that there is a different way. A man wrong with me now for go brush him because he have a value. He have family and kids and so on. We need to make a serious investment in transforming our population, right? Transforming our society. We transform it from both ends, right? From the justice system, the school system, and in time, we will get the results that we're looking for, right? Let me know what you want to think. Let me hear what you want to think about what we think. There's a long list of stuff. I wanted to focus on the election, the upcoming election, but I'll leave that for the next live, right? Where we're gonna talk about the JLP and the PNP. Now the two conferences them done, right? And we want to now take a look at what was delivered at the two annual conferences and measure it. And so with that Jamaicans, we're a mature democracy, and we want to talk about what's next politically for Jamaica. But in the meantime, let's troop on this. Let me hear what I want to think about what we think in respect to this deliberation here about the capital punishment. Give me a feedback. Until then, people, it has been a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I know it's a kind of a monologue. We get some feedback, YouTube feedback here. Would I love to get some additional feedback. But if you can continue, post on the Facebook page, and I will respond to the comments as I read them afterwards. Until then, more time.